What's up, YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back with another Laserdisc Spotlight review. I'm going to do a few of these things. Sorry, I've been away for a little while getting prepped for a vacation that I'm in the midst of this week. I figured since I got some spare time, I might as well sit down and fire up a few more videos in the can and get those things all edited. But anyways, let's get on with some stuff. And I've been watching a lot of films on this Sony deck that I got. Nobody likes Sony decks, but I'm having a bit of fantasy wish fulfillment. Kind of reliving my 90s Laserdisc years when I first picked up my Sony MDP-333. Like, I would have dreamed to have been able to pick up a MDP-800, and it was a pretty top-of-the-line player back in the day. Had dual-sided features and digital memory and all sorts of picture enhancement modes, etc. And it cost well over $1,000 back in the day, and I picked one up as part of a lot that I had gotten on Craigslist about a month ago, and so I've been kind of having a great time playing that, putting it through its paces, making sure it works well. I don't know if I'm going to end up holding on to it or selling it, but even though it does have a low signal-to-noise ratio and low-quality video compared with any average Pioneer, I'm still having a blast using it, and it works like a charm. So I've been watching a lot of the films that I'd gotten in that recent lot, and one of them was Steve McQueen in Bullitt, Peter Yates flick, and Peter Yates never quite did as many gritty cop features as this. Chase-wise, you could count Breaking Away, which had bicycle races, and Mother Drugs and Speed had a lot of car scenes in there as well. He also did Krull, which is awesome. Check out Krull if you're a fan of Liam Neeson and sci-fi. But yeah, this is a 1968 film and about Frank Bullitt, the detective largely based on David Toschi of the San Francisco Police Department, who you've seen portrayed by Mark Ruffalo in the film Zodiac. And Bullitt's, kind of quick draw holster technique and all that stuff was kind of largely taken from Toschi. And this film is notorious for having one of the, considered one of the all-time great car chase scenes, which is buried in Chapter 4 on Side 2, so you can't jump right to it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a chase between a Ford Mustang and a Dodge Charger, which is great the way it's layered. It kind of starts out in San Francisco on the hilly streets with a lot of POV shots of the camera mounted either on the hood of the car or right in front of the windscreen, and just amazing butterflies in the stomach moments where you're looking at nothing but the horizon as you go over the edge of a hill in San Francisco, and then moving out for some intense pedal to the metal scenes on the streets leading out of the city. And that alone, I've watched that scene a number of times, but watching the film itself is worth it because it's a really cool flick. Definitely an influence on the Michael Mann filmmaking style. He borrowed a lot of stuff from this film, including a chase on foot in an airport that was largely kind of lifted right into Heat. And Heat also delves into a lot of the same thematic character material. Jacqueline Bisset has a largely thankless role as Bullitt's girlfriend, who starts to realize the danger of his existence. He's a cop that's forced to deal with violence and death on a regular basis, and she questions how do you process that and remain a normal civilized human being. A lot of that same material was mulled over in both Robert De Niro and Al Pacino's characters in Heat. This did it first, back in '68, and it's a solid flick about a cop that's forced to pretty much babysit a star witness, a guy that's part of he's a brother to Vic Tayback, who's a Chicago mobster and has been kind of tagged as a potential witness to kind of give a little bit of insight into the organized crime scene, and has been given a contact out in San Francisco, a up-and-coming politician played by Robert Vaughn, who you may have seen hustling attorney services on your TV over the past 20 years or so, and also from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He is in San Francisco for a Senate subcommittee hearing on organized crime, and has been recommended Bullitt as the cop of choice to keep his star witness alive until the hearings begin the following Monday. And needless to say, stuff in the safe house goes wrong quickly, and there's a lot of intrigue as to why that happened, but Bullitt's left behind to pick up the pieces, and Robert Vaughn continually sidelines him and lets him know that to be in this guy's pocket is the correct move and can advance your career. So it's kind of like a Jonathan E. and Rollerball situation, where there's the one guy that's left that's kind of looking out for what's right and not just doing what everyone that's in positions of power tells him to do. So that's a pretty cool story. He's out solving this case, and nobody else really wants him to. And he's trying to find out who these mob hitmen are that are in town and take care of the situation. And yeah, it's pretty good and gritty. The opening credits are amazing. Like just the simple technique of having the titles appear and then slide out of frame, but they leave behind an image mask, and you can see through the title where the titles were the next image that's going to be edited to. And it's a pretty simple technique, and you can do mask edits on Photoshop now with titles, but it was a really effective and cool looking technique that would certainly not be out of place in a modern cop film. And Lalo Schifrin did the score, which is great, if only for the fact that it knows when to shut up. During the car chase, during the kind of subterfuge moments where they're tailing one another, there's a lot of the kind of traditional jazzy backing music. But then once the chase itself ensues, it stops, as it does during a later foot chase. Really good here, as is a scene in a bar, which again is very good, like dynamic and striking visuals in the film. There's a scene where Jacqueline Bisset and Frank Bullitt go out for dinner, but you don't actually hear any of the dinner conversation. The focus is primarily on the jazz band that's playing at the restaurant. Neat touches like that, very stylish and kind of late 60s filmmaking, but great stuff. The sound is reprocessed stereo. Apparently it was mono originally and then was reprocessed as stereo. And there is some directionality to it. A lot of car chase scenes, you can hear a car veer off to the right or left, etc. But it's very constricted. It's not very dynamic. And it's shrill at times. That said, dialogue is very easily distinguishable, and it gets the point across. And for a monofilm from 1968, it sounds fine enough. It does have a digital track on the Laserdisc, which is nice, and it does have chapter breaks. It does have a CX encoded analog track as well, but you're not going to get any surround presence out of it or anything like that. Visually, the film was shot on stocks that had some limitations with nighttime scenes and some indoor scenes. Anything that's shot outdoors, with a lot of the San Francisco architecture, pops and has a lot of vibrancy to it. Skin tones are a little bit off from scene to scene, so it's not going to win any awards, especially on Laserdisc as far as cinematography. The transfer on this release is purportedly an open matte transfer. It's in 1.33 to 1 or 4 to 3, like a traditional television tube set, which is where I watched it at first, and it looked pretty sharp on there. And then I also watched it again on my projector, and I tried to mask it with my upscaler into basically 1.78 to 1 or HD TV 16 to 9, and it did seem to play well there. Nobody's faces were cut off. The headroom seemed a little constricted. So I'm almost wondering if the full 35mm frame isn't what's on the 4 to 3 image, or maybe it was zoomed in a little bit. But like I said, it still played pretty well that way. I'd be intrigued to do a comparison between the Blu-ray when I eventually get it and this. But it's a cool flick. Steve McQueen's great in it. Jacqueline Bisset's pretty solid in her role. Robert Duvall has a cameo as a cab driver. Norman Fell's in it as well, and Vic Tayback, as I mentioned before. So cool cast, cool flick, and definitely a good kind of stick it to the man film about doing your job when all the odds are against you. So definitely recommend picking up the film. I mean, you don't necessarily need to get this Laserdisc version, but if you happen to pick it up in a lot or something, it's worth owning for sure. And again, if you're into framing, this would definitely be a great candidate for that. But I do look forward to checking out the Blu-ray. Looking forward to seeing what kind of detail they squeezed out of it. All right, thanks for hanging out with me, and we're going to be back with some more Laserdisc Spotlight reviews. So cheers, everybody.